Fridays at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Going to be doing a mock draft today, and I'm really excited about it because as we get closer and closer to the draft, we're honing in on what exactly the 49ers are looking for, what they're going to do in the draft. And like I've said before, I believe the draft is just a living, breathing thing that continues to evolve every single day. There's something new. There's a new pro day. There's a new report. There's a new interest. There's a new meeting. Everything that just continues to push players in certain directions and to have certain fits with certain teams. And for the 49ers, it's no different. You continue to hone in on potential targets, whether that's players they've met with, which they will draft at times, or even guys that just fit the bill for what they're looking for. Now, the interesting thing is as I've went through this mock draft season, I haven't really taken the same players in every mock draft. I've continued to keep it varied and continue to talk about certain players because I think it's interesting to not go with the same picks all the time. And we know who those guys are at the top of the draft, the guys that are going to be potentials for the 49ers at 11 and beyond. We've also done some trade back scenarios where you get more picks, which I think is tremendous value for the 49ers. But you have to have two to tango. So can you do that? So in this mock draft, I'm gonna keep it interesting. I want to see what things look like when you go certain positions. We've went defensive end in round one. That was the first mock draft. Then we've went defensive tackle twice since then. Could we go offensive line? Potentially. I think John Lynch's conversations about looking for a left guard, it still leaves the door open to potentially get one of these top flight tackles at pick 11, play them at guard, and then eventually they slide out to Trent Williams' left tackle position whenever he decides to hang it up. So there are potential places where we could find to kind of get offensive tackle. I think defensive end is a tremendous value. If you've been on the channel for a while, I've said I feel like defensive end in round one probably carries the most value. Then you've got defensive tackle, which carries the most need. I think defensive end is pretty bare besides Nick Bosa, but defensive tackle, you have no starter. So do you draft for need? Do you draft for the highest potential? Those are some of the question marks you have. And then do you just draft somebody because they're phenomenal and they're going to fill a potential hole? A guy like Gia Campbell, do you go get a linebacker? He's the best linebacker in the draft. It's not close. You just lost one of your best linebackers in Dre Greenlaw to free agency. And I know a lot of people might say, hey, that's a little crazy to go linebacker. But I don't think you have to address defensive tackle in round one if you look at what you could possibly get in rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5, where there's tremendous talent. And so you just have to evaluate what's the best. When can you get players at what position? So we're going to talk that out in this episode. And we're going to talk about which guys the 49ers could possibly target at 11. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if the trend continues and I go with somebody different. The first draft, I went with Nick Scorton. That was got a lot of people's attention. Some people loved it. Some people hated it. But a defensive end I thought had tremendous value. Now, he's falling down the board just a little bit to the late round one, which is interesting. I still think Nick Scorton is a very, very good player. Then in the second mock draft, I went with Walter Nolan, and it was met with some resistance as well, even though Nolan is a tremendous value. In the third mock draft, went to Derek Harmon after a trade back to 22 where we picked up a lot more value. I thought Derek Harmon was a great pick there, and it set up a phenomenal draft that we had last time. Now, if I didn't count it as a mock draft, but I did do my Bill Walsh philosophy and go ahead and kind of mimic the 1981 draft, so that's available. In that one, we did go defensive line, but Mason Graham fell to us at 11. Couldn't pass it up. In that draft, they ended up getting Mason Graham and Walter Nolan. Probably never going to happen, but you never say never. Maybe somebody doesn't really like Walter Nolan. They're looking for another position, and he slides. Who knows? But in this one, we're going to keep it interesting, keep it fresh. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to this draft season. I think it's going to be great when the draft gets here in just over or just under 3 weeks now. I mean, it's rapidly coming up on us. And if you want to go to a draft party, come to the 49ers Rush Road Trip by John Chapman. I'm going to be out there. I'm going to be at the draft party, and me and him are going to be going live, and we're gonna get to have a lot of fun watching the draft in real time, commenting, giving a lot of background on each player and talking about what his team is doing. But also the Hyena Diameter Lenore is going to be there. So you want to go check that out. That's day one that he's going to be there. And you just go to rushroadtrip.com. Go get your tickets. They're only $20 right now. The price will go up the closer you get to the event. So go check that out. Broadway Studios in San Francisco. Go check that out. And then night two, me and John are going to be live on night two, going through all the ins and outs of every 49ers pick and every NFL pick. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, enjoy the party. You guys have fun. All the music, the trivia, the raffles. The kids get in for free. So every kid that comes is going to have an experience. So kids are always welcome. And that is the Rush Road Trip draft party. So come check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you can hang out with all the faithful as the 49ers look to start the season with some really key draft picks. But we're going to get into this mock draft. And we're going to have a lot of fun. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. So let's go ahead. Let's put on the mock, and let's just take a look at what happens here for the San Francisco 49ers. So we're going to go ahead and let it run. I'm not going to do a trade-up scenario. The only thing that would make me interested is if Abdul Carter fell. He did not, so he's gone. So now we're just going to let this thing roll as we see the usual suspects go off the board. So Armand Membu would have been very interesting at 11, of course. And, I think where we're looking at these trades here, you've got the Chargers offering 22.55 and a 2026 third round pick, which I think is extremely enticing. Then you've got the Green Bay Packers offering even more, pick 23, pick 54. So the question is, do you want to fall one extra spot back and get one pick higher, plus get a couple of extra picks in the mid rounds? Maybe you could use those to trade up. So we'll table those right now, and we'll look at the board. So Tetairoa McMillan is here, which we don't really want to go wide receiver, but if you were going to go wide receiver, this would be tremendous value. Here's Tyler Warren. That's going to make a lot of people really want to stick at this pick. So here's the guys that right now have been mentioned the most to the 49ers. You got Kelvin Banks, who has been mocked to the 49ers several times. This would be a plug-and-play left guard initially, and then he could slide out to left tackle in place of Trent Williams next year or the year after. And there's a lot of question marks about how good he is. I still think he's a very talented player, is worthy of the number 11 overall pick. He would be the third tackle off the board at 11. And so there's still tremendous value there. I think after that, it gets a little bit more interesting when it comes to offensive line. You see Mike Green here, the edge rusher. The 49ers have met with him twice now. When you're talking about pressure off the edge, that would be an enticing look as well. Colson Loveland, the best tight end. I don't think the 49ers go tight end this high. Derek Harmon, we went with him last time after a trade back scenario, which I thought worked out pretty well. Here's Jahad Campbell, and he's going to go pick 20, or he's ranked 23. I think he could go as high as 12 to the Cowboys. Who knows? Maybe the 49ers potentially go there. Here's Jahdae Barron. He's been mocked to the 49ers at 11. Walter Nolan. Here's Nick Scorton, who I did last time. James Pierce, who's fallen a little bit in this process. So lots of options for the 49ers. So we could potentially sit here and take one of these guys and feel pretty comfortable doing that. But then you look at the trade offer, and it sets you up for the rest of the draft. 23 and 54 allows you to get another player. And we know the 49ers need a lot of players in this draft. 11 picks is a significant amount. But picking up another one and potentially more picks in the future could be tremendous value. So the question is, do you go 23-54 to pick up the extra pick next year, or do you fall one spot less here and one spot more there and get a third round pick? I think we're going to take the Green Bay Packers deal. We're going to fall back 12 spots, and we're going to see what's on the board when we get there, because I think there's just so many tremendous players available. This will give the 49ers an opportunity. And I know a lot of people don't like trade backs, but this one is just too enticing to pass up. There goes Shamar Stewart. Mike Green, the edge from Marshall, goes. So that probably would have been somebody very interesting to get. But when you get to pick 23, there's still going to be tremendous picks available. We're not trading out of the first round. I don't really like that one just because we just traded. But let's look at the board now. Here's Derek Harmon. Here's Walter Nolan. Here's Nick Squirton. James Pierce Jr., like really talented football players here. You already picked up a second-round pick. Our biggest need is Derek Harmon, right? Defensive tackles, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon. That is the 49ers' biggest need. Probably the best player, in my opinion, on the board right now is Jihad Campbell. I think Jihad Campbell is the player the 49ers could most use. This is one of those guys I think is going to be a Pro Bowl, all pro caliber player. I love Nick Emmanwori, but I don't think the 49ers are going safety, especially early in this draft. So I think the question mark comes down to, you go Harmon, Nolan, or Campbell. And I like to do things a little bit different. And so I think I'm going to go with Jihad Campbell in this one. And stick with me on this. I understand that, we need defensive tackle, and these two guys are phenomenal, right? He's really good against the run. Walter Nolan, he's got some upside when it comes to pass rush, explosive. Derek Harmon's the better pass rusher, could get better when it comes to stopping the run. These two guys, right, are both very significant. But with the extra second-round pick, we can go defensive tackle in round 2. Well, we have an opportunity to replace Dre Greenlaw right here. And who knows what Jihad Campbell will be his rookie season. But 6'3", 235 pounds, runs a 4.5 40, and has sideline-to-sideline speed, is getting better when it comes to stopping the run consistently. I think there's just a tremendous value there. Because we traded back, this is a great place for Jihad Campbell, and you're going to get him for 5 years with a rookie deal. That 5 years might take you to the end of Fred Warner's deal and Fred Warner's time in the 49ers. He might, be ready to retire within those 5 years. If that happens, you could plug and play Campbell at Mike linebacker, and he could be the next great linebacker for the 49ers. So I know that the 49ers normally like to take guys later in the draft to play linebacker, right? 3rd round, Fred Warner, 5th round, Dre Greenlaw, undrafted free agent when it comes to Azeez Al-Shire. But Jihad Campbell is just so good. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And, I like to keep it interesting. I don't know if this will be what I would do on my final mock draft. But for this one, I think it's a fun conversation to see what happens after the trade back, taking Jihad Campbell at pick 23, who I believe was the best player on the board. So there goes the 2 defensive tackles. We see Nick Emmanwori is still there. That's interesting. I think he should be gone already. He should be a top 20 pick in this draft, but he is falling. And if he falls all the way to 43, there he goes. Okay, so that I don't have to have that conversation. So let's go ahead and let's look at the board. Okay, we'll see what the trades are. We're not trading out of the second round. Devon Ravel, right, cornerback. I think this is a hotbed for corner. Here's Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle. We could easily go with one of the best run stuffers. I think this is tremendous value for Kenneth Grant. So that would be really interesting. Landon Jackson, the 49ers just met with. I like him a lot. 280. I think he's going to play around 265, 270 in the NFL, though. Tremendous athlete. Did have some leg injuries in his time in college, so that's concerning. Trey Amos, who I believe is a first-round talent at cornerback. Now, here's an interesting one that I don't think people talk about anymore. Wyatt Millam. He was such a conversation point for the 49ers fans and media members before he tested at the Senior Bowl. They found out that his arms are extremely short, but he was so good playing offensive tackle, and I think this guy could be a dynamite guard. And I seen my number one guard right here, Donovan Jackson, go off, right? A tackle I would have really been interested in Ariante Ursary. Both those guys are off, but Wyatt Millam, he just doesn't give up sacks. Like, this dude is good. So he's a potential target here. I see Wyatt Millam, Trey Amos, Landon Jackson, Kenneth Grant. I think a lot of people would say, hey, you can't pass on Kenneth Grant here. We do need to get an edge. Here's JT Tuimoloau. And I took Tuimoloau in another mock draft before. So he's definitely a possibility. And we do have another pick coming up at 54 because we traded back. So we do have some draft capital to get some guys in this area. Here's Tate Ratledge, another guard that I'd be a fan of. TJ Sanders, potentially. So we do need to address defensive tackle. We need to address defensive end. I don't think I'm going to overthink this thing. I see Kenneth Grant right here. This is too good a value, plug and play one tech for the 49ers. So you get your linebacker. Now you go and get you somebody that can keep Fred Warner and Geog Campbell clean and make it so those guys can flow to the football. So Kenneth Grant is going to be the selection at pick 43. I think that'd be shocking if he's there, but there is a world where that happens, where teams don't value him as much, thinking maybe he's just a two-down player in the NFL initially. Now, he does show upside, right, being able to rush the passer. He had 3 sacks last year. So the Chiefs are offering an opportunity to fall back 9 spots and then move up to pick 95. I think that's enticing. I don't normally like trading with the Chiefs, but the 49ers did it last year in the second round, so we know they're not opposed to it. And jumping up here 65 spots would be huge, falling 9. So let's look at the board. Guys we'd be interested in. Wyatt Millum is still here. Would be a tremendous pick to play offensive guard. Caleb Johnson, probably the best running back fit in the entire draft for the 49ers, but I think this is too early to go running back, even though I love him. He's one of my favorite running backs in this draft. Azareye'h Thomas would be a lockdown corner on the outside. You could potentially go corner here in the second round, but where's the value, right? Here's Tate Ratledge, interior offensive lineman if you're going guard. Olufemi Oladejo. There could be the edge presence you're looking for. Not a lot of production, a lot of projection when you're talking about him. Wide receiver Jaden Higgins. I think if you're looking to address wide receiver, this could be the number one spot to go. Here's TJ Sanders. There's a lot of guys here. Darian Porter, I really like him. 6'3", over 200 pounds. Wide receiver to corner translation. Fantastic. Now, Alfred Collins I'd normally consider, but we already got Kenneth Grant. So we're not going to double up on big run-stopping defensive tackles this early, especially because I know I got Evan Anderson who can help stop the run as well. Here's Andrew Makuba. If they were going to go safety, he would be a possibility. So I see a lot of guys, Darius Alexander, among others, that I really like in this position. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the Chiefs offer because I want to move back 9 spots to move up 65. And I'm going to let this thing kind of thin out and shake out. So there goes Wyatt Millum. That's what they did. So we lose Oladejo. But there's lots of edge guys coming. There goes Darian Porter. So potentially this thing just kind of evened out. We're not going to trade again with the Giants or the Jets. We're just going to leave it. So we got Tate Ratledge. We got TJ Sanders. I'm very tempted to go Sanders here. And the reason being is this is your penetrating 3 tech. You already got Kenneth Grant. You could go ahead and you could get TJ Sanders. And Darius Alexander's a better run stopper than Sanders, but I think Sanders is going to be the guy that can put the most pressure on. Now, with that being said, we have another pick at 75. And Omar Norman-Lott is probably the best defensive line pass rusher as far as interior in the entire draft. So that's something to consider as well. Here's Jared Wilson. We could go center of the future. I don't know if I feel confident about that after the recent comments from John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Tate Ratledge, they did say they need to fill the left guard position, but I think they're going to stick defensive picks probably for the first part of the draft. Now, this one might be too good to pass up, right? Jaden Higgins here at pick 63. You go Sanders, you go Higgins, and hope that the other one makes it to 75. I think I'm going to go Sanders. I want to make sure the 49ers get their penetrating 3 tech. We didn't go Walter Nolan. We didn't go Derek Harmon. We did get Kenneth Grant. So getting TJ Sanders here could be tremendous value for the 49ers and one of the better defensive tackles. We're just going to do it. If wide receiver goes off the board, we live with it because, that's not a number one need for us. But we're hopeful. Maybe that guy will get there to pick 75, which there he goes off the board. So we don't get Jaden Higgins, which not huge. So here's another opportunity to move back 5. I don't know if I want to trade again. I want to look at the board. We still got Andrew Makuba, who the 49ers did meet with. I think this would be the first time you think safety, and this is a pure free safety. Kevin Winston, another guy. Here's Jared Wilson, which, once again, will the 49ers go offensive line? That's the question mark. Zach Betch could be tremendous value. Alec Aomanor out of Stanford. This is a do-it-all wide receiver that might be a possibility. Ashton Gelati, if we needed to go edge rusher, I like Ashton Gelati a lot. So let's look at the board so far. Geog Campbell, Kenneth Grant, TJ Sanders. We've worked the interior part of the defensive line. We work linebacker. Now we got some edge rushers that are kind of coming that next wave, right? Here's Ashton Gelati, who shocked everyone when he ran his 4.6 240. Tremendous athleticism. Josiah Stewart, who was just very productive at Michigan, even though a little undersized. Those are two guys that are kind of right in the mix here. Jordan Birch, a big physical guy. Here's Terrence Ferguson, who I'd love to get on the offensive side of the ball. My favorite player on the board right now is Omar Norman Lott. He's my favorite player on the board. But because we just went defensive tackle with two, I think we need to go to another position. And I think that you can get Aeneas Peebles later, and he's not going to be Omar Norman Lott, but he's going to be Omar Norman Lott light. And I think I'm going to go to Ashton Gelati. And I think that you go ahead and you take the versatile edge here, good against the run, play stout on the edge, can rush the passer, has the ability to also slide inside on obvious pass down, so give you a versatile piece that can do a lot of things. I think Gelati is going to be a really good player, and this is tremendous value for him here in the third round at pick 75. So we're going to go ahead and address defense again with Ashton Gelati, and we're going to let this thing roll to 95. And there's going to be a lot of good players that come off the board. The third round is intense. Omar Norman Lott goes to Seattle. That hurts. Gunnar Helm comes off the board. There's Joshua Farmer. That's a good pick. There goes Jack Betch. Right. So, a wide receiver the 49ers potentially could have been interested in. Makuba goes right before us to Cleveland. So that one kind of hurt a little bit. Here's Cameron Williams, right? If you're thinking potential offensive tackle, a guy that can play guard, I do think he translates well to guard. So this could be an opportunity to go get Cameron Williams. You still got Kevin Winston, a really good safety out of Penn State. He's trending in the right direction. Here's Terrence Ferguson. In this area, I think it comes down to him and Gunnar Helm as my favorite tight ends kind of in this area. Torrey Horton, the wide receiver from Colorado State, big, long. My guy Luke Luna put me onto him in the process, and now he's moving up boards. I think without injury, he would have been a lot higher than this. Anthony Belton, who is a big offensive tackle, and we're going to have to address offensive tackle at some point. I just think with the way the 49ers are talking, the value right now is not there. Now, here's CJ West, which we know is like everyone's favorite defensive lineman. Now, we have addressed defensive line in a big way with Kenneth Grant, TJ Sanders, and then edge player Ashton Gelati. So we've picked up some extra picks that are allowing us to get more value. I don't want to trade probably anymore. We'll see what happens. But moving back for Campbell allowed us to get TJ Sanders at pick 63, which is a huge value. And then we traded back a little bit to get an extra third round pick at pick 95. So this gives us a little versatility. And now that we've went defense very heavy, and I think the 49ers are probably going to take a late round safety. I don't think they're willing to go here yet, probably day 3 pick. So it's going to come down to Cameron Williams, who I don't love at this position, and Terrence Ferguson, who I do really love. I think he's a perfect fit as a move tight end for the 49ers. And, I look at Torrey Horton. I like him, but I like some other wide receivers later, especially for depth that can play X receiver. I think I'm just going to not overthink this thing and go, hey, you know what? Luxury pick Terrence Ferguson. Now we get the move tight end to go with George Kittle. I think this is tremendous value for him right here in round 3 and the best player, I think, on the board right now. So Terrence Ferguson is the pick, and we're going to be right back on the board here at pick 100. Now, the guy that just went off the board, Dylan Fairchild, is my third favorite from Georgia on the interior, but he would have definitely been somebody I was interested in. As we can see, Cameron Williams continues his drop, and now we're getting to pick 100, and there just might be too much value for Cameron Williams, and I know a lot of people don't like him, and I think there's some weaknesses to his game, but I think him moving to the inside, I think he would be tremendous at guard, and I think he does still have the potential to kick out to right tackle if you have to make a decision on Colt McKivitz, after the season. So I do think he's a potential player here. I've never selected him in a draft, and I kind of like to do some stuff like that where it's a little bit interesting. Let's look at the other players. We'll pick again at 113. But here's Bashal Tutin. I broke him down on Patreon. If you like the breakdowns, go check that out. I think he is a possibility for the 49ers, Bashal Tutin. Savion Williams is a 49ers type guy. Like him, of course, CJ West. If we wanted to go with another big defensive tackle who could stop the run, we did get Kenneth Grant earlier, so I don't know if we have to do that. Kobe Bryant, a smaller uh, corner out of Kansas. He's got some skills. Here's Logan Brown. I think he's a real possibility that we could hit at 113 if we wanted for offensive tackle. We know how I feel about him. I do think he's a talented guy. We got some other guys. Here's another run stopper. Chase Lunt, Antoine Powell-Ryland, I like as a edge rusher. Danny Stutzman, a new linebacker that I really like. Now, we did go linebacker earlier, so we don't need to do that. We do need to go corner at some point. Here's Jacob Parrish. So there's some very talented guys still coming up on the board. So let's go ahead and look what's up here. I think I'm going to change this thing up and do something I haven't done. Cameron Williams, probably if he'd went back to Texas next year, would have been, a early day 2 pick. I'm going to go ahead and go there. And I know this isn't a lot of people's favorites. He has some weaknesses when it comes to bend at the waist. But I think he's got the size. I mean, this dude is big. Just looking at the size, 6'5", 317. He's got physical tools that I think that could be developed. I think this is tremendous value for Cameron Williams. I think he could have easily been, a guy that went in the early 3rd round, but we're going to get him here. So Cameron Williams is going to be the pick. I've never taken him in a mock. I love doing that. You get some guys that you don't normally get, and you find value at offensive line. So we've got an offensive guard who we believe can eventually play right tackle. And so we kind of got that dual threat guy. And this is the first time we went offense back-to-back picks. So we'll see. Do we need to go offense again? Here's Michelle Tootin. Here's Savion Williams. I think there's some running backs we could get later. We just went offensive line. Logan Brown available. So there's something there with him. So we're looking at the board, and we're seeing a lot of talented guys. Here's Antoine Powell-Ryland, another edge player. And I see him here, but right underneath I see Jacob Parrish. And I want to make sure I go get a cornerback, that can be very physical. And I like some guys later, but I do like Jacob Parrish, and I'm not gonna wait and potentially miss out on him being there. I've taken Quincy Riley in the draft before, and I do like Quincy Riley a lot. But for the sake of doing things a little bit different and seeing and kind of highlighting other players, I'm going to highlight a different player here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take. I got to find him here. I went ahead and moved off Jacob Parrish, cornerback from Kansas State. I think he fits what the 49ers do. He's a dog. I got versatility to play inside and out. And we're just going to keep adding to this team as it moves. So Geog Campbell at 23, Kenneth Grant, 43, TJ Sanders, then Ashton Gelati, the edge presence, Terrence Ferguson. We go Cameron Williams. I know this one's probably going to get people's attention the same way that this one up here did. Going linebacker in round 1, probably not what a lot of people would do. They probably would have waited for guys like Jeffrey Bossa, or others. But I just think there's tremendous value there. Running back Damian Martinez is a big physical running back. Here's Chase Lunt still. If we want to address offensive line again, this is who I think is the best, especially mid-round tackle prospect for the 49ers with the way that he moves. How many offensive line spots are available, though, for the 49ers? That's the question, right? They wanted to bring in somebody to compete there, but that's the question mark. Here you come to some more defensive linemen. J.J. Pegues, Riley Mills, right? Some guys you could be interested in. Another edge defender. So you got a guy that could play the run really well. Now, Q Robinson is interesting because this is all speed. Special teams, stud. He's interesting. So I'm thinking about Q Robinson as a potential target. Here's Jalen Lane, who is extremely fast. He's a 4.3 guy. You're looking for a wide receiver that can stretch the field. But I think this is an interesting spot where you have some positions you could double up on. We could go offensive line again with Chase Lunt, get some value there. You got Jordan Phillips, a defensive run stopper, potential there. Jeffrey Bossa, you could go linebacker again. I don't know if you need to. You went high with linebacker. Malachi Moore, who's basically fallen off people's boards. But you know what? I think I'm going to go with the guy that I feel the most comfortable with right here, a absolute fit. And I know they've met with Charles Grant, and he is a fit as well. But I'm going to go with Chase Lunt. I think Chase Lunt is the most 49ers offensive tackle that there is. And if you go Cameron Williams at guard, Chase Lunt could be right tackle in the future. And this dude just wins out in space. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Chase Lunt, offensive tackle out of UConn. There goes Jeffrey Bossa. So we're seeing some of those players that we like going off JJ Pegues. But we're picking again here at 147. And then we're not going to pick again until 227. Some of our trades allowed us to move up, but then we lost some mid-round picks. So we got to make sure we hit on a guy here that we really like in this position. And it could be anywhere since we're not picking, right? Miles Frazier, offensive guard they met with. But we don't need to go there now because we've already taken care of offensive line. Here's Aeneas Peebles, who is a pass rush specialist from the interior part of the defensive line. The 49ers met with him. I think there's tremendous value for him there. This is just crazy to me that Zach Sawyer is here still at 147 in the 5th round. I don't know how he's there, but I was gonna take one of these other guys like Aeneas Peebles or Jared Ivey, but I just can't. Jack Sawyer in round 5. I don't know why he would drop this far. It's probably unrealistic, but let's just say it happened. There's absolutely no way you let Jack Sawyer just slip by and you go ahead and you take the edge defender right there. He's just too good. And so we're going to wait a long time for pick 227. But just to look at the board, you took Gia Campbell at pick 23 after a trade back. Then you've got Kenneth Grant at 43. And then you traded back from 55 to 63. And you got TJ Sanders. Then you took Ashton Gelati with your first 3rd round pick. And then with the pick you got for going back, you got Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon. Then Cameron Williams, offensive tackle. I think he slides in early to play guard, and then eventually you move him out. But this is a big guy that moves really well, that's got very good developmental skills. He's got to get better. Then you get the cornerback in Jacob Parrish. You go offensive line again with Chase Lunt to increase maybe your swing tackle in year 1. And then Jack Sawyer, who's just too much value. You can't possibly pass up on him at that point. Like, it's just insane to me that he would even be available at that spot. So it's just wild that he's there, and I just couldn't pass it up. And you never know. Sometimes these types of things happen, so you just let it play out in these mock drafts. And would I have these rankings the same way that this mock draft simulator does? No. But I'm also not beholden to these rankings either. I kind of go wherever I want to go. It'll probably get worse when we get closer to the draft, when I've done all my draft work and I've been able to see even more of these players. But let's go ahead and see what's on the board. We went offensive tackle, or Jalen Travis would be somebody interesting right here. Here's Trevor Etienne. We have not went running back yet. Etienne could be an interesting guy. We could go Craig Woodson. Now, this is the value I'm talking about when it comes to safety. Craig Woodson would be tremendous value to add. But you already have a bunch of guys you signed in free agency. Do you draft another safety to come in and compete with all those guys? DeCorey Krosky-Merritt, I think he is a possibility for the 49ers as well. Running back from Arizona, they met with him early in the process. Brew McCoy, who's become one of my favorite wide receivers. We do pick again at 249. And I do like him. I like Robert Longerbeam. I think if you like Kobe Bryant, the cornerback out of Kansas, you will like Robert Longerbeam out of Rutgers. He's basically in the same mold, a little bit undersized, tremendous at driving on the football. Here's Andrew Armstrong. I like him. Keandre Lambert-Smith. So the fact that there's 3 wide receivers later on in this draft with Armstrong, Lambert-Smith, and Brew McCoy, I'm going to wait to go wide receiver. I think I'm going to potentially go running back here with this pick. And I want to get somebody that can make an impact early. So I think when you're looking at a guy that's more dual threat, it's going to be Trevor Etienne. But if you're looking for a dude that is going to make some plays on the ground running the football, DeCorey Krosky-Merritt is probably going to be that guy. Now, I like those guys. I want to point out a couple other guys that I really like in this category. O'Donnell Fortune, I think, is a cornerback they could go with, right? Benjamin Yorosek. But we already went tight end in this draft, so we don't have to. I just wanted to make sure that there was nobody that I was missing on. As you get down in here, right, it's kind of a crapshoot of where you want to go. But let's just go ahead. Let's take the running back, DeCorey Krosky-Merritt. I think he's a big physical guy that is going to be a great downhill runner, and the 49ers met with him. We're going to go there. He was the offensive MVP of the Shrine Bowl. So DeCorey Krosky-Merritt is going to be the pick at 227. And then we're going to go 249. And so we have 249 and 252. We picked up Green Bay's 2026 second and fourth, which is going to set us up for the future. We probably could have used those to move around a little bit, but it's nice to see where players are going to go in the draft. So now these ones, the first one, I want to go wide receiver. I think it's time to get a wide receiver. I think there's tremendous value at the end. Like I talked about, Brew McCoy, I think is great. Andrew Armstrong, who I'm a huge fan of, over 1,100 yards and 78 catches last year at Arkansas, opposite of Isaac Tesla. Good player. Keandre Lambert Smith, the guy from Auburn. I like this guy a lot. A 4.38 40. I haven't taken Keandre Lambert Smith yet. I'm going to go ahead and take him in this mock draft. I think he's got tremendous value playing X receiver. And so now it's about the last pick, just getting somebody that's, like an interesting talent that has some sort of elite trait. So Robert Longerbeam is the best, one of the best guys to drive on the football in the entire draft. His weaknesses have to do with his size. He's 175 pounds. Now, he's willing to come up and stick you, so he's a possibility. Jackson Woodard is one of the better linebacker prospects and a late-round linebacker that's just a tackling machine. So if you like Stutzman, you like Jackson Woodard later on in this draft. So I think he's a possibility. You look at Yahya Black, you could add more depth along the defensive line. O'Donnell Fortune, I think, is one of the better zone coverage cornerbacks in this draft. I think he does a really good job with feel. He knows when to drop off and make some plays. Carson Bruner, an athletic linebacker, I think he would be a possibility here at this pick because you want to get guys. Ahmad Hassanin, pretty good player as well. So another interesting guy. There are just so many guys down here that it starts getting pretty interesting with as the board continues to change and move. Here's another tight end prospect down here is Rock Taylor, who I know is some people's favorites. We are getting way down there, and there's still some names that are pretty enticing. But let's go ahead and go back up closer to the top, and we're just going to go ahead and take a guy that I think could make an impact on special teams and could help this football team out when it comes to depth. And I think he's just a really great cornerback. I was thinking about going Woodard, the linebacker, but I'm going to go Longerbeam. I think Longerbeam, even though you look at the size, 175, 5'11", it's the size that's going to be the question mark. But when it comes to coming up and making plays on the football, he's fantastic. Now, the tackling is going to have to get better. That's probably a question mark for him. But I want everyone to take a look at Robert Longerbeam. I don't think he's really been on people's radar. And so that's why I want him kind of out there. So I'm going to go ahead and draft him here. Robert Longerbeam, interesting prospect, who I think is really good in coverage, and you're betting on the upside. So here's what we did in the draft. We traded back with the Green Bay Packers, and we got pick 23, and we got pick 55, also a second and a fourth, which, not really worried about in this draft. They probably overpaid exclusively, but we're not worried about that because we're just going off the picks. You traded back to get Geog Campbell, which is probably going to raise some eyebrows, but you got the best linebacker in the draft, and you've done your best to replace Drake Greenlaw. And the news that the 49ers did so much to try to keep Drake Greenlaw, which is important, shows the value of linebacker. You need to make sure you get this thing right. Geog Campbell is right. 6'3", 235 pounds, 4.5 40, right? He's the quintessential Fred Warner build, 6'3", 235. And then he's got the ability to cover in space, the ability to rush off the edge, a lot of versatility there. So Geog Campbell's the pick. I thought he was the best player on the board, and so I went that direction. At pick 43, fortunate enough that Kenneth Grant was sliding. A lot of people think Grant's a first-round pick. He probably will go in the first round. He didn't in this mock draft. We selected Kenneth Grant. Then because we passed on the two defensive tackles in round one, we went defensive tackle in round two twice with TJ Sanders and Kenneth Grant, using that pick we got from the trade back to pick up TJ Sanders. Ashton Gelati, the edge from Louisville, athletic, sets a hard edge, can get after the quarterback. Very, very talented player. I think he could make a huge impact for the 49ers off the edge. Then because we traded back from 55 to 63, we got pick 95 in the third round, and we took tight end from Oregon, Terrence Ferguson, to be the move tight end. And really help out this 49ers offense. Yeah, he's not going to have a large amount of plays that he's going to be able to help, but he can help a lot when you go to 12 personnel, especially if you're going to pass. Good out in space, good mover, and has potential to get better as a blocker because he is a willing blocker. Another one that's going to raise eyebrows, Cameron Williams. I'm probably, at this point, high on him. I know a lot of people in the process had this guy as a second round pick. He's not there anymore. I think this at the end of the third round is tremendous value to get a offensive guard at early on, a guy that can compete at offensive guard and then eventually kick out. This is just too much talent to pass on. So Cameron Williams, at the offensive tackle from Texas, who I see playing guard in the NFL, especially initially, I think there's just too much value for 6'5", 317 that moves the way he does. Jacob Parrish, cornerback, Kansas State, in the fourth round. I think he's a lot of value. Play inside and out, is a dog, runs around, makes tackles. I think he's a very Deommodore Lenoir-esque type player. When you're talking about undersized but competes at a high level, very physical, that's what we love about him. Chase Lunt is the most Mike McGlinchey player that you have in this draft. A guy that can win in space in the run game, that's super athletic out on the edge. That's his elite trait. And he's got to get better when it comes to pass protection. But this is a developmental offensive tackle who could be your swing tackle in year one and eventually take over for Colt McKivitz. You could have two guys here, Cameron Williams or Chase Lunt, take over in the coming years, and you have to replace other guys like Spencer Burford, who could potentially move on next year, Ben Barch. So you've got to start making some moves. Potentially these two guys do that. Jack Sawyer, I already had went edge with Ashton Gelati, but Jack Sawyer being there in the fifth round is just too much value. I don't know why he would be there. I think this guy is a day two pick, but you never know. Slides happen. If he slides, I'm taking Jack Sawyer 100% at this pick. If I would have seen him on the board, I probably would have taken him at 138 at the end of the fourth round. That's just too much value for Jack Sawyer. Then at 227, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, running back, Arizona, big physical downhill runner. 49ers met with him after the Shrine Bowl, and he was the offensive MVP of the Shrine Bowl. Tremendous performance. This dude has some get up and go, but he's a big physical runner as well. Keandre Lambert-Smith, wide receiver, Auburn. He's big, he's long. He ran a 4.38 40, and I think he's still getting better. Presents some opportunities for the 49ers. There were other guys I liked as well in that range, right? Brew McCoy, Andrew Armstrong out of Arkansas, but I wanted to go something different. Keandre Lambert-Smith, I think, is a true X receiver that can make some plays, and you're getting a lot of value in the seventh round. And then I went with Robert Longerbeam, which is a lot of projection here with the last pick, but you're going with somebody that has that projection that you can maybe get something out of that you don't want to lose when it comes to being an undrafted free agent. So that's why I went ahead and went with Longerbeam, one of the best guys at driving on the football. When his back foot hits, he absolutely explodes with athleticism moving forward. So that's one of the things I really like about him. So those are the picks in this mock draft. I thought it was an interesting mock draft. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about it. So I kept it different. And, of course, this isn't my final mock draft. I like to have conversations and get people talking about what could possibly happen. We're going to hone in exactly on what the 49ers do by the time we get to the draft. So I'm going to working towards a final mock, but I thought that this one went pretty well when you're talking about the players you got and potential starters day one. Jiad Campbell, Kenneth Grant, TJ Sanders, all potential starters day one. Key contributors on day one, Terrence Ferguson, Ashton Gelati, Jacob Parrish, even Chase Lunt as your swing tackle, but Jack Sawyer as well. Too much value where you have key contributors that you picked up in this draft. But I thought it was a good draft when it came to depth. The trade back method definitely worked. I'll probably do another mock draft where I don't trade back to kind of keep things in perspective of what it looks like if you don't get those picks. But it was fun. Let me know in the comment section what you liked, what you didn't like. You're not going to hurt my feelings. Just let it go. We all have different opinions. And then, let me know what you did like. I think it's always interesting. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.